So guys, let me keep exploring this with you. I stand before you tonight because I would like you to make a substantial switch. The switch is you stop working for money and have money working for you. Now, it doesn't happen like this. Sometimes there is preparation, there is time. There is no such a thing as getting rich quickly. You get that? There is no such a thing as trying to get rich very fast. You've got to work at it and have a system. It is a system. As much as farming is a system, wealth creation is a system. Imagine a farmer trying to go and plant his seeds. He forgot that spring was on. And towards the end of spring, right, or summer is already here, then he says, hurry, hurry, we have to prepare the ground. It's too late. You missed the season. And we see so many people starting on the journey about wealth creation in their mid-50s. Now, I'm not one who stand before you and say you missed the season. You've got to do something. In a country like Australia, not hard. It's just that you need to have the conversations. We call them distinctions. So I'm here to take you through. So here we go. The switch is the optimal series of realizations, strategies, tactics, and implementations deliberately. I love the word deliberately because it's exactly what it means. We are doing this to achieve a result designed to cause assets to accumulate under your bloodline. See, I could have used a few other words here, but I used the word bloodline because the wealth ought to stay in your family. I am of the belief that we are just passing through. So if in this lifetime I could create wealth to bless my family and others, my family after me has to pick up the concepts and be able to run with it. Because the truth is, I am totally present to the reality there's only 5% of people going to make it financially. The majority of us will wish that one day we had a better future. And yet, tonight, you get the distinctions and you start working at them. So let's have a look at this again. The optimal series of realizations. It's when you go, ha, ha, ha. Tonight, when you go, wow, whoa, and you feel like that, that's a realization. And some of the stuff I'm going to say, you're going to be highly uncomfortable. You're going to be looking at it thinking, oh my God, I never saw it that way, and I know it. And some of the stuff that I'm about to say, you may even get angry at me. But that's okay. You know, it's okay because by the time we are finished, you will be clear on the possibilities that you're actually facing for your life. So here we go. So the implementation of the strategies, I am going to show you some amazing stuff as I've been promising. And as you get the distinction, it's very important, especially when you make your notes. When you are taking down your notes, I see some of you already writing stuff down. When you make your notes, please review your notes. Take them home. You study them. And start taking a plan of action to actually implement the things that you're going to learn here tonight. Now, when you make the switch, because the switch will happen first psychologically. It doesn't happen just in the mind. You got to find it emotionally, psychologically. You make the switch and you commit to it. You know what's going to show up? Wealth is going to show up. And then as wealth starts to come, you will start to wonder, where has it been hiding? It's always been around. An opportunity of a lifetime comes twice a week. It's just that we are not looking. So guys, who am I that I can offer you such insights? I just arrived in Australia in 1988. I couldn't speak a word of English. As a matter of fact, I knew the colors and I knew some numbers. And I used to say, me Julio, me work, and go for a job. So I arrived in Australia in 1988. Now I want to run some numbers by you. I want you to pay attention to the numbers because in your life there are numbers as well. So I arrived in Australia and there it is. What? It's a recession. And I am just brand new, starting to get the language, starting to get what's going on. And people used to say to me, this is a tough time to have come out. I don't know, some of you may remember, it's the recession we got to have when Paul Keating was the treasurer at the time. And it's a recession we got to have. So I started talking to people. And I used to say to people conversations like this, hey, what is your inflation? And people said 12% per annum. And they were seriously concerned. But I was coming out of Brazil, where the inflation at the time was 300%. 300%. And then what actually happened was this. I said, hold on a second, what's your interest? What's the price of money? What's your interest rate? And people used to say, 12%. So inflation in Australia, 12%. The interest rates are around 12% as well. And I used to say, how can you have an inflation so low if your price of money is so high? And here comes the biggest distinction for me. They meant 12% per annum, where in Brazil, it was 12% per month. Yeah, per month. If you borrowed $100,000, at the end of the month, you got to show up with 12 grand, and that's why inflation was rampant. So how do you think I went at that moment? I thought that this was a great country. I thought, my God, this is Disneyland. This is fantastic. Money at 12% per annum? This is very, very cheap money. But you see how you see the glass, half full or half empty. I knew I was going to be a multimillionaire. I did not know how, but I knew that something was awesome. And then what actually happened was I started working my butt off. I actually went for 2 jobs. And I saved money and saved money and saved money and saved money. And then we proceeded to buy a house. You know why we bought a house? Because they let us. Yeah. So the first year in Australia, I saved and saved and saved and saved. And I put a small deposit in the house. And then I kept going, I kept going, I kept going. I bought another one. You know why? Because they let us. But here comes one of the most amazing things that ever took place. I went to see my accountant, very first time doing accounting in Australia. And I came to realize that if you have a proper investment, the same with shares, if you have a proper investment or shares or anything like it, right? If the income from your investment is not enough to pay for all the bills to do with that, the gap is tax deductible. So in other words, I'm sitting with this guy, so-called accountant, he's explaining it to me that the rent I wasn't getting, it was enough to pay all my bills. Yeah, I got that. The difference I could deduct against all my other income. I said, no way. And they said, yes way, sir. Do you know what happened? I thought that every Australian was a multimillionaire and they were just hiding. So I was really excited. I went up to people and said, is this true? And they said, yeah, that's true. No, is that true? And they would say, yes, it is true. And I'm thinking, hold on a second, how many houses do you have? And people used to say to me, she'll be right, mate. She'll be right. And I so wanted to meet her. Who is she? Who is she? But the truth is, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. So even though so many people were aware of it, they're not implementing it. But a little boy from Brazil with little English, first year I saved, put money to work for me, I bought an asset base. And then as soon as I could, I bought another one. You know why? Because they let me. Because they let me. You know, bloody wogs come here and become multi-millionaires. You know why? Because this is the best country in the world. There's no comparison. Could you pull the stunts that you can pull in Australia in terms of going ahead and becoming somebody? This is an incredible, incredible country. Let me just say this. I have an accent, right? But I am 100% Aussianized, 100% Australian. I knew once when I was in Brazil, and I thought, I got to go home. So I came back to Australia, and I said, I want to become a citizen. Now, back to this story. I called my dad. I says, Dad, do you know in Australia, when you don't have enough money, when the income coming from the investment is not enough to pay all the repayments, you can deduct against all your other incomes. You know what he said to me? He said, son, don't do it. It's a scam. Imagine. And then I bought another one, and I bought another one. Recession? What recession? Guys, of course, the economic cycle goes up and down, and I look at this moment now, okay, just past us, the so-called recession that hit us. And when I say so-called, I know it's real. But what I find funny is that people are surprised. Hold on, it's not the last one. Have you noticed every 10 years we seem to pop one in the radar? Oh, but this one is different. Well, they said the same about the last one and the same about the last one. But let me be very clear with you. Every time a recession comes, an incredible amount of wealth actually changes hands. There is so much money going on that if you put your hands up like this, surely some money ought to stick in your hands. But the majority of people, they're going like this. I got to pay my bills, I got to pay my bills. Oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Am I going to be fired? Am I going to be fired? So guys, let me be very clear with you. If you see on the news that there is 7% unemployment, it's going to go to 9% unemployment, that means that 91% of people employed still get up and go to work. He's not going to shut it down. But you know what? All of us think it's us who's going to get fired. It's us who is not, the number's going to stop working for. Just once again, it's working with the numbers. So if you ask me to summarize my presentation, I would say to you, don't take hair for granted. Do not take Australia for granted. But Julia, what do you mean? We don't take Australia for granted. I said, no, for what it is. In terms of becoming, she's young, she's the crown of the jewel, she's going places, it's the best country that there is. And yet so many people totally hypnotized by the income. They get the income, they spend the income. They get the income, they spend the income. Let me be very clear about a freedom you have in Australia. This is a fundamental part of what you're going to get from me tonight. Here it is. Here it is. Our forefathers did not go to war for the freedom of speech. The freedom that they talk about is the freedom of ownership. The reality that the legislation in this country gives you the right to own the land, to own what is, to own parts of the island. So, sir, how many properties could you own in Australia? Ma'am, how many businesses could you own? How many shares could you own? I know. So how come the majority of people are struggling to pay their house off, right? And when they look at it, they have a little bit of money in super. You know, the interesting thing about this moment now is if this was an investment party and you start asking each other, how's your super going? 50% of you would say genuinely, I don't know. That's how deep the hypnosis go. So it is great that you're here.